Hello YouTube, I'm Esther Emery of the DIY channel Fouch-O-Matic Off-Grid. But today I'm just going to tell a story of what it was like for me to be the teenage daughter of a woman whose profession was teaching people how to slaughter chickens. Okay, that's not entirely what her life description or career description was, but my mother was Carla Emery, who wrote a book called The Encyclopedia of Country Living. Those of you who have followed me have heard lots about her. But I wanted to talk today about the chicken slaughter and the feelings and emotions of that and what it means to respect life. And I really can't tell you where I'm coming from or share my unique perspective on this without starting when I was 15 years old on the road with my mom. The summer that I was 15, I had also just graduated from high school, which is a whole nother story to be told another day. But I was a high school graduate and I was headed for college, but that whole summer I was hanging out with my mom and I was really making decisions about who I was going to be in the world, who I was going to be as an adult. And my mom was on what she called a tour. But at that point, it was after the era of kind of big, glossy, going on TV tours to promote her book. And it was before the current era where everything's online. And although people do still go on tour, our platform or kind of sense of audience occurs online. It was in those in-between years, in the mid-90s. And she was just going from little town to little town, gathering small groups of people who had read her book or knew about her legacy, and she gave talks. She also would give demonstrations, skill demonstrations. So the time that I'm particularly thinking of, she was at the Missoula County Fair. And she had given the fair organizers her list of things that she could teach, and they had chosen for her, and she was doing egg noodles and a chicken. So that was a chicken from start to finish. They gave her a live chicken, she gave them a soup, and it was a demonstration. And I was 15, and I was in the audience in this room. And my mother didn't wear makeup, and my mother wasn't fancy. She was just a real country girl. And she stood up there and she killed a chicken. All the time, her mouth going, telling people exactly how to do it, the best technique for it, and I was mortified. I was so embarrassed by this middle-aged woman, and I had a kind of a who does she think she is attitude towards her, and I just had no value whatsoever for what she was doing. And more than that, I was just mortified by the grossness of it, by the kind of earthy violence of cutting a chicken's head off. The summer that I was 15 years old is also the summer that I began to have unhealthy eating behavior, disordered eating behavior, which led to an eating disorder of 10 years, which at its climax was extremely dangerous for me, both physically and psychologically. I don't want to oversimplify that my inability to watch the chicken be slaughtered and my inability to feed myself normally are one and the same, but I do want to challenge the relationships between the two. I do want to address the relationships between the two, because now that I'm in my mid-30s and have been through a whole process of becoming healthy with food, I realize that my shame over the death of that chicken and my shame over feeding myself normal healthy foods have the same root and the same feeling. There are a lot of cleanses that are encouraged right now. There are a lot of ways to limit your eating to theoretically make yourself better, make yourself more moral, or make yourself more healthy, or make yourself more of a better person. There's a lot of ways to limit your food intake in order to become a better human being. I now live in a way in which I am trying to see and experience every item of food that comes into my body or my family's body. And we're very intentional about that. When we pursue self-sufficiency as a far-off goal, I'm not telling you that we're a self-sufficient farm by any means, but when we pursue self-sufficiency, we are saying we're willing to examine every single calorie that comes in, where it comes from, whether it's necessary, whether it's ethical, whether the pathway by which it comes to me is something that I can examine and look at with a clear conscience. There is an ethical way of eating, but there is no way of eating that doesn't require destruction. There are moral ways of eating, but there are no ways of eating that don't cost anything, that don't make a mark, that don't ruin anything. And I know that for me as a teenager, what I did is I tried to find a way to eat where I didn't leave any marks. I tried to find a way to eat where I wasn't animal, I was only spiritual. And I was literally trying to suppress my physical self in order to become a more spiritual being. I don't have to tell you that it backfired. I don't have to tell you that that isn't possible. I'm done with pretending that there is a way for me to eat that is completely clean. I'm done with treating the body that just wants to be fed as something that I can somehow set aside or rise above. It doesn't seem to me to be a healthy way to go, to say, this body that I occupy is unclean, and this mind with which I make choices is going to suppress the unclean body, and therefore I'm going to be a better, more ethical, more moral person. I don't think that's how God made me. And this is not a Christian sermon, although I am very passionate about my own personal Christian faith. This is about how we look at ethics, how we look at morality. Do we say, I can just rise above this world and not make any footfalls? I think that's our imagination. So my interest then is, how do we redeem the chicken slaughter? Is there a way to redeem the chicken slaughter? Is there a way to look at this violent, base, physical act of killing a chicken and say, I approach this with responsibility, with gratitude, with awareness, with appreciation? And if that's possible, does that mean, for example, that I eat a lot less meat and I know exactly where it comes from? And that, for me, is how I eat with a clean conscience. As opposed to, I am going to eradicate my urges. I'm going to eradicate my own selfishness and somehow become a being that causes no harm. Food maturity comes from being able to look at the cost of your eating and not shrink from that. Being able to examine what you're destroying in order to feed your body, whether it's a vegetable or an animal. Are you able to feed back in and sustain those systems? Are you able to have a clear conscience in terms of how you as an ethical or moral being are treating and responding to what you're taking out of the system to feed yourself? So for me, going through the chicken slaughter process is actually a way of cleansing my own conscience and making it possible for me to put food in my mouth, bypassing that pattern of shame. My mother died before I made my own transitions about food. In fact, she died before I recovered from my eating disorder. But now, although she isn't here to stand in the flesh beside me as I basically follow the same teachings that she taught, I am able to recognize that what she knew about killing a chicken that I rejected as a teenager is one way of having maturity regarding food. One way of having maturity regarding what it costs to be a human being in this world and to walk and make footsteps and to need nourishment and to have a body that just wants to be fed. I don't have any way to be sure that I'm not mortifying my own children or that I won't be horribly embarrassing to them when they are teenagers. But I do hope that I can look them in the eye and say, I am making the best decisions that I know how to be a moral person on this earth. I am doing what I can to respect and value what I have been given with which to feed myself. We hear these messages so often that in order to solve our eating problems or our food problems, we need to push harder, we need to do better, we need to be more fierce. But I would offer that sometimes maybe what's needed is actually to be more gentle. maybe to be more forgiving, maybe to open up more, maybe to just let this creature that you are be hungry and to feed it with what's available in this amazing, bountiful creation. I'm Esther Emery. Thanks for listening today. Have a great day.